Welcome to the beautiful city of Istanbul, where the Bosphorus meets the Balkans. I am Semir Sejfovic, and this is Across the Balkans on TRT World. This week, we bring you the latest stories from the region, exploring how nations, governments, and everyday people are being affected. A new Council of Europe report warns that hate speech in Croatia is widespread, targeting migrants, Roma, Serbs, and people of African descent. Last year, Croatia issued over 200,000 work permits for foreign nationals, a record high, but weak integration policies leave many workers vulnerable. Armin Totic has more.
In Osijek, foreign workers play a crucial role in daily life, contributing to building sites, working in restaurants, and delivering goods. Manoj, a Nepali national, is one of them. He arrived in 2019 and works in plastic processing company. Today he is part of a growing community that is essential to Osijek's economy.
I came here for a job. We are lots of Nepalese here in one company. We are around 130 people in one company, and we are good here. We work here and we send money to our family for support our financial.
Unfortunately, not all foreign workers share the same positive experience. In early September, a foreign delivery worker was beaten and robbed while on duty in Osijek, an attack that shocked the city. In the first 7 months of 2024, the police recorded 527 foreign nationals as victims of crime, more than 6 times the number for all of 2023, according to the Peace Center in Osijek. The organization says the rising number of attacks shows how exposed foreign workers are and points to a deeper problem, the lack of integration policies.
Ono što mi već godinama ističemo i godinama zagovaramo, a to je nedostatak strateških dokumenata od strane naše vlade vezano uz integraciju stranaca, prvenstveno u lokalnu zajednicu, a zatim i nacionalno. Naime, Hrvatska nema od početka 2016. Strateški plan za migracijske politike, niti za integraciju koji je također istekao, a nije se radio na novom, odnosno novi do danas nije donešen. Ključ je u tom radu na integraciji, ali koji je zapravo taj rad na integraciji treba biti participativan proces, da svi dionici budu uključeni u taj proces i zajednički raditi na tome. Ono što je jako važno je učenje jezika. Uz sigurnost koju ste vi spomenuli, mislim da je jako važno i jezik, jer jezik je ključan za integraciju. Primjerice, imamo u Osijeku slučajeve stranih radnika iz Nepala koji su ovdje duže od 6 godina, a i dalje ne govore hrvatski jezik.
The latest report from the Council of Europe's Anti-Racism Commission warns that hate speech is widespread. Migrants, Roma, ethnic Serbs, and people of African descent are among the most frequent targets.
The European Commission Against Racism and Intolerance says hate speech goes beyond the internet, surfacing in politics, on the streets, and in stadiums. It urges Croatia to adopt national strategy to protect vulnerable groups like foreign workers, otherwise many risk remaining or becoming targets forced to live in fear.
Lawmakers are now under pressure to respond. For Armin Hodžić, a minority member of parliament in the governing coalition, hate speech threatens not only migrants, but democratic standards themselves.
Porast govora mržnje i općenito porast ekstremnih desnih političkih opcija je prisutan u cijeloj Europi, u cijeloj Europskoj uniji, ne samo u Republici Hrvatskoj. Ako pogledamo sve ono što se dešava i u Njemačkoj, i u Francuskoj, i u Velikoj Britaniji, dakle političke opcije koje su do jučer bile na marginama, danas postaju one koje u anketama su među najpopularnijima. Kada govorimo o Hrvatskoj, dakako da postoji jedan trend da desne političke opcije pokušavaju profitirati na toj ksenofobiji, da pokušavaju profitirati na tome da se protive dolasku stranih radnika, da propituju odnos društva prema njima, njihovu integraciju i tome slično.
Analysts caution that the problem goes beyond mere rhetoric. Radical slogans once seen as taboo are now tolerated at concerts and stadiums. When repeated by politicians, they shift from the margins to the mainstream.
Mi sigurno trebamo strategije, ali do njih ne možete doći iz helikoptera da ih bacite, nego morate ići korak po korak. Od taktike prema strategiji morate imati jasan stav. Morate imati jedan, tako da kažemo, set vrijednosti koje se smatraju u društvu neupitno. Na primjer, da se ne smije ljude šikanirati, dakle diskriminirati na osnovi podrijetla. To je minimum. Od etničkog do životnog stila i tako dalje, to kod nas zapravo nije moguće postići još uvijek i sve manje je moguće postići u Europi.
For many, Croatia is a land of opportunity. But right groups say without stronger integration policies, the promise of inclusion risks being overshadowed by intolerance. Armin Totić, Across the Balkans, Zagreb, Croatia.
We speak to Fabio Losa from the United Nations Population Fund about the Balkans' depopulation and why so many people are leaving while others are arriving. Mr. Losa, thank you very much for your time and for speaking to TRT World and Across the Balkans. What factors have contributed to the Balkans becoming the fastest shrinking region in terms of population?
The reason we see population decline so important in Eastern Europe, including the Balkans, is the convergence of two different demographic phenomena. On the one side, you have important, massive outward migration. Millions of people having left their countries to reach other countries abroad, in particular Western Europe. But this goes together with very low fertility rates, women with less than 2 children on average, and these phenomena are persisting over various decades. And this makes really the situation in the Western Balkans quite unique, because the force of these two phenomena coming together creates really an unprecedented situation. If you compare, for example, this with Western Europe, of course Western Europe sees more or less the same low fertility level. But due to the strength of these economies, immigration is in a way stabilizing the numbers of the population. So this is really to say that the particularity of Western Balkan and Eastern Europe requires us to consider both phenomena, so low fertility together with out-migration, and solution need to consider and try to strategize on how to create, to manage these two phenomena together.
How has EU membership or its policies influenced population growth or decline? For example, Croatia and Bulgaria, despite being EU members, have seen a significant migration of skilled workers abroad.
Now, indeed, the free movement of persons, one of the 4 freedoms of the EU single market, is creating new opportunities, because people from the different countries can have access to the whole EU labor market. And for new countries accessing EU, this is creating an additional strains in terms of demography. More people might make use of this opportunity to go abroad if the living conditions in their countries are not as good as the ones they would find in the other countries. And so this creates really a situation where there is a need to increase the living condition in these countries. But the EU accession is not just about free movement of persons. It of course encourages good governance, institutional reform, and economic convergence. The main aim is really to make sure that these countries can improve their current situation and compete with the other countries in the Union in order to make sure that people can really decide to stay in their own countries because they find everything that they are looking for in order to have their own lives.
When did this trend of population decline begin? When did it peak? And what policies could be implemented to reverse depopulation? And what could be the consequences of the region? And what is its future?
The onset of declining fertility rates in Eastern Europe dates back of several decades, around the 70s and 80s. And this is part of what demographers call the demographic transition. But the decline in population number is mainly related to the turmoil after the post-Soviet times and the conflicts in the 90s, which triggered massive migration processes. The key question is, can government revert this major trend? In part, yes, with some mitigation and some adaptation measure. Because the real nature of the major population decline in Eastern Europe is out-migration, governments need to address the conditions because the people leave their own countries. And this relates obviously to labor conditions, good jobs, decent jobs, formal jobs, productive jobs, well-paid jobs, together with economic opportunities, but in some cases also the lack of economic security, the high living cost in some of these countries, the high burden of corruption, and the lack of trust in institutions. So the countries in Eastern and Southeastern Europe need really to create the condition for their people to want to live there and to remain there.
While southern EU countries maybe have relatively younger populations, how has the aging population in the rest of the EU impacted depopulation in the Balkans?
Yes, you could say that the aging population in Western Europe is sort of creating a demand, a vacuum to be filled out. The issue is that this is creating an additional pull factor for people living in the Western Balkans, in Eastern Europe, to reach the Western economies. Because if you look at the population now in Western Europe, is in a way getting older, and the workforce is projected to shrinking and aging. And this of course creates a massive request for professionals in those economies. And this is one side of the picture. The other side is that because of the aging population, there is a strong demand, for example, from the healthcare system. So they need doctors, they need nurses.
To what extent have the social population policies of developed countries have had a positive or negative effect on these trends?
The often more generous and well-structured social protection policies, family support in the Western economies are an additional pull factors for people from these regions that want to have better living conditions. Everyone wants a stable pension, everyone wants to have unemployment benefit if he or she gets unemployed. Everyone want access to education and to social services. And these are additional elements for which people move. They want to move if they don't find this in their own countries. And so this is really once more a plea for governments in this country to consider the living and the economic condition really at the micro level. So giving the opportunity to people, to their own citizens, to think about a life in their own country where they can really thrive, where they can think about a career and a family. And at UNFPA, we try really to create this linkage between policymakers, between sectoral ministries in the Western countries, with countries in the Western Balkans and in other parts of our region, in order to share good experience, good practices, to show models that they can adopt also during their accession process to the EU. Because this really creates this input to improve the democratic and the governance process in these countries that will lead eventually to converge to the same standard.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Kosovo is investing in technology and innovation, where young engineers are turning creativity into progress through robotics and drone design. The country is also developing its defense and tech industries, aiming for a smarter, safer, and more self-reliant future. Omer Saraci has more.
In Ridvan Aliu's laboratory in the city of Gjilan, children are learning the ABCs of robotics. They have managed to 3D print the components needed to build and assemble the drone. His initiative first focused on teaching programming, which later evolved into combining knowledge of hardware and software to build different types of robots, eventually leading to practical application in drone technology. Ridvan believes combining drones with artificial intelligence is essential to tackle pressing demands in the economy and security sectors.
Aftësimi I rinisë në robotik e ndërtimin e dronëve e robotëve më të avancuar edhe Kosovës I jep një shans shumë e madhe. Për shkak se talentin e kemi me veti. Farbojnë studentët tonë për një kohë shumë shkurt me mjete jo shumë të avancume, kryejnë detyra shumë të mëdha ku I vjen një shteti tjetër kogja budget të madh.
He believes that Kosovo's technological progress is closely linked to greater engagement from the local private sector.
E kemi atë fazën shumë kritike hypmin këtë vagonin e inteligjencës artificiale.
What started as a youth initiative has blossomed into a success story. Kosovo's first indigenous drone, named Sokoli, is now in development, and they believe it could rival the renowned Turkish Bayraktar model. Several prototypes are already functional, and the final version is expected to be unveiled within a year.
But beyond laboratories like this one, where young people are building new devices, Kosovo is facing a far more dangerous reality. In recent weeks, several unauthorized drone incursions have been reported in the country's airspace. Authorities have confirmed multiple cases which are being investigated in collaboration with KFOR and international partners.
Acting Minister of Internal Affairs Celal Zvečla said Serbia recently violated Kosovo's airspace with drones, posing a national security risk. He said it's part of Serbia's broader strategy of aggression towards Kosovo. At the European Political Community Summit in Copenhagen, Kosovo's President Vjosa Osmani delivered a bold message, calling for unity, consistency and courage in defending Europe's freedom against Russian aggression and Serbian destabilization.
There are currently two main security threats coming against countries within our continent. One comes from Russia, obviously. The other one, especially in our region, comes from Russia's proxy, Russia's extension in our region, that is Serbia.
These airspace violations coincide with an initiative from Kosovo's government to develop a domestic defense industry. Prime Minister Albin Kurti recently announced the formation of an interministerial commission to establish a munition factory and a drone design laboratory, underscoring defense as a top priority. The government is also procuring a range of ground and aerial defense systems, with a commitment to allocate more than $1 billion to strengthen the Kosovo security force. Security analyst Mensud Ademi says the alleged drone incursions over Kosovo demonstrate how drones are now pivotal tools in hybrid warfare.
Lufta hibride ka ndruar në botë, nuk është luftë klasike, vetëm luftë toksore dhe ushtarake, tash përdoren teknika dhe teknologjitë. Dronët që futen në Republikën e Kosovës kryesisht për momentin janë vëzhgues edhe janë drona përgjus. Po, çdo herë mas dronit vëzhgues edhe dronit përgjus, çdo vjen droni i cili atakon, vjen droni atakues ku mund shkakton dome, qoftë dome njerëz, qoftë dome materiale.
Regarding the trilateral agreement among Albania, Kosovo and Croatia in the field of security, Ademi sees it as an important step. He believes apart from support from US, Turkey will play a key supporting role. Former Kosovo ambassador Sy Lukshini says Serbia remains a persistently hostile state towards Kosovo, in its language, policies and military posture. But for lasting peace in the region, he believes there is a clear solution.
Por nëse Bashkimi Evropian do paqen e do sigurinë, 5 vendet e BE-s duhet ta njohin Kosovë. Kjo hap perspektivën e integrimit të Kosovës në BE, hap perspektivën po ashtu edhe në antarësimin të Kosovës në NATO. Kjo është mënyra e vetme për të garantuar qëndrueshmëri afatgjate, që ne të jemi pjesë e NATO-s, atë rajoni do të jetë më i sigurt, Kosova do të jetë më i sigurt dhe ambicia e shfrenuar territoriale e Serbisë, domethënë do të disiplinohet.
Drones have become synonymous with both war and peace and economic progress. But can Kosovo guide its next generation away from conflict and toward innovation-driven growth? Ultimately, much will depend on its neighbors too. Omer Saraci, Across the Balkans, Pristina.
Albania's first Gen Z lawmaker, Mariana Kotseku, has taken her seat in parliament. She plans to focus on environmental issues and boost the growing tourism sector. Tejda Imamovic has more on this story.
Fluent in 5 languages and holding a degree in diplomacy, this 24-year-old goalkeeper was handpicked by Prime Minister Edi Rama to represent the Shkodra region in the National Assembly. Shkodra, a county in the historic center of northern Albania, sits at the junction of the Drin and Buna rivers. It is home to more than 150,000 inhabitants, making it the 6th most populous county in Albania. Kotseku says the pristine natural environment around Komani Lake is a major source of inspiration for her. This is where she grew up, in a family that has worked in and benefited from the region's growing tourism industry. She is proud of her identity and the place she grew up.
I grew up sort of with tourism. I was the first guide in Koman since I was like 12 years old, translating for tourists with my broken movie English back then as a child, and helping my father and my brothers in the boat with the tourists.
Kotseku says the region is now facing new challenges that are threatening the natural environment. Plastic pollution in the form of bottles and other waste is contaminating Lake Komani. She is also concerned about the region's aging infrastructure, which she says has been neglected for decades. She hopes to address this issue in parliament. Kotseku expects to encounter many new challenges as she joins the parliament in Tirana. Prime Minister Edi Rama is facing fierce opposition in parliament. He has been in power for 12 years, winning the 4th term in May, but the opposition claims the vote was rigged and has threatened protests. Despite the tense political landscape, Kotseku is determined to stay focused on her grassroots agenda of environmental protection and infrastructure improvements.
It will take me some time to find a sort of balance between what I've been living the past 4 years and what I'm going to live right now. But I think it's going definitely to be beautiful, because this is the beauty of life in the end, diversity and different environments and people.
Kotseku's initiatives have the potential to bolster local tourism and help families like hers prosper. Communities in the Shkodra region will be closely monitoring her progress. hoping she succeeds. Tejda Imamović, Across the Balkans.
Thank you for watching TRT World and letting us once again take you across the Balkans. That is all from the team for this week. We hope to see you next time. Güle güle from Istanbul, Turkey.